Alrighty, so welcome everybody to Main Chat Nerd Night. Where a bunch of us from the Main Chat Discord server and a couple of friends get together and we play some Dungeons and Dragons. Last session we ended on pretty much the end of an encounter, potentially another upcoming one. So I'll do a really quick recap and we'll see where we go from there. Rurik is running a little bit late, but he should be in just a couple minutes. Going very far back to the first session, our group came together in the small lakeside town of Darnek, located on Lake Darnek, because of course it is. There they met an elf by the name of Larasa, who tasked them with finding information about a suspected a house that she has suspicions about, a noble house by the name of I literally just had the name on the top of my head. Tarmyran, there we go. And she also asked them to try and get travel documentation so that she could travel to where she believed Harsh Tarmyran to be located so she could do some investigation. In doing so, they traveled out of Darnek into the capital of that particular county by the name of Dulstrand. In Dulstrand, they met a couple of very interesting characters. Then they met a man by the name of Nald, who offered to get them what they needed in exchange for rescuing his son, also named Nald. They've made it most of the way to one of the neighboring capital cities by the name of Bren. They've met a couple of people here and there, made a couple of deals, made a couple of enemies, burned down a tree, because naturally. And here we are. The group is currently on the side of the road, or more or less on the road, with a gigantic Gulthais tree, an evil tree that spawns twig blights, currently in flames, smoke, opaque black smoke rising into the sky, a stream of what appears to be some kind of black tar fluid coming out the side of the tree, but the flow is being staunched by the flames.
When I get a moment, I want to invert my cape to put, like, the black side out.
Okay. Yeah, you can do that now that things have settled down. So.
Rurik just pulled up, by the way. He'll be in a minute.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, yes, so as this goes on, Zook experienced some rather interesting emotions and took some very interesting actions. And in doing so, he's been feeling some remorse, and he's been trying to sort of pay penance, more or less. As a part of that, you go ahead and you turn your cloak around from the, I believe it's red and black, is it?
On the outside, yeah.
Yeah. So he has a red and so he has a red and black invertible capelet. He's reversed the red to be on the inside and the black to be on the outside.
And remind me, is it a thing where it's like one pocket that's accessible from both sides?
That was a little bit too expensive for your level 1 funds.
Okay. So
you may be able to get that done if you run into a tailor later on, or if you go back to the tailor that Hoyd ran into, but...
So I think I got, like, the 2 pockets thing.
Correct, you have 1 pocket on either side.
Okay, is there anything in the pockets at the time? I don't think there's anything in the pockets.
That would be up to you. I don't know if you put anything in the pockets. At the moment, most of the party...
Actually, wait, no, there's one thing in the pockets. I'm going to move it to the inside pocket.
Okay.
What is now the inside pocket.
So you move the object that was on the outside to the that was the inside back to the inside, now that you've inverted the cape.
That might need a sleight of hand check.
Oh, you're trying to do this without being seen?
This is the thing that I picked up in the brick, and I'm trying to move it.
Okay. Sure, roll sleight of hand. This will be versus everyone else's passive perception, which fortunately for you, you have the highest passive perception because of your feet.
Do you need our passive, or do you
14.
have it?
I have your passive. Fortunately, because you're a low enough level that your stats are easy to calculate. I can just look up and say, oh, that's a 12, that's a 8, that's a whatever. Yeah, for most people, yeah, none of you notice this happening. As this is going on, toward the end of last session, all of you, almost all of you, not all of you, were able to hear the sound of approaching hoofbeats. It sounded like at least 10, if not more, horses. You can see the dust rising from the distance. It's coming from the direction of your next town, the next town that you'll be encountering. Which Zook and Hoyd, you both recognize the town of Ford's End. You're probably maybe half an hour, if that. You're very close to the town. And you see these horses approaching. Well, currently you don't see the horses. They're a bit too far off. You can see the cloud and you can hear them.
Okay. Are there any fallen branches near me or anything like that?
Yeah, glancing around, there's maybe 1 or 2 branches, no, but the roots off the bottom of the tree that had fallen over. There are a couple of those lying around that you could more or less fashion into sticks.
Okay, I'm looking for like a walking stick quickly.
Okay, make a quick perception
More of a
check.
prop than anything else.
We'll say investigation. So Prudence, you call Deer back to you, give her a quick little head scratch, and then dismiss her back to her pocket dimension.
It's a 10.
It's a 10. You see a few that might be serviceable. They won't hold weight, but they'll appear to be about what you're looking for.
Okay, that's fine. That'll do.
Cool.
Wait, Hoyd, what are you doing?
Looking for a stick. I'll show you in a second. To the group and everybody else is paying attention. Riders on the way. Everybody off the road.
I was already planning to get off the road. I'll find a large rock and hide, partly because I need a moment.
Okay. Where you are is relative flat grasslands. You do find a rock that was nearby. I recall drawing one on the map last week. 2 weeks ago, rather. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot to actually hide behind. Your biggest cover is currently burning. So.
Would that work for cover? For
it,
the smoke
I mean,
choke people out?
Until they ride around it, yeah. And Prudence says, why? It's not like we're, in the way more than the tree is. Kind of gestures over to the bonfire that's continued to burn.
Are you prepared if they're not exactly thrilled with us doing that?
Well, there's no immediate indication that it was us who did that.
A whole group of us standing around a tree that's on fire.
Well, we'll only be standing around it if we don't move.
I think I can buy some time if you guys want to come up with another plan.
I'm here now, so
Alright. Welcome back, Rurik.
I inverted my code. We otherwise haven't done anything.
Okay. Prudence just nods at that and says, I've done nothing wrong. I can explain myself.
I'm going to use Disguise Self.
Okay. And
I'm
change
going
to
look like an incredibly harmless dwarf with the loot on his back. Old.
Okay. So you change your appearance to look
Stick.
like a loot. I believe. Let me just check the wording of Disguise Self. You can make yourself appear to be
Luthier, yes.
1 foot shorter or taller. So you'd be a little tall for a dwarf, but you can make it happen if you'd like.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm also going to be hunched back a little bit, using the stick as a walking staff. Not actually putting much weight on it, though.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
So you... Now, Zook, were
complete your
you...
description.
So, yeah, so as Hoyd finishes casting this, you see his appearance shimmers and changes, and you see he, just at the tail end of his chanting, he kind of hunches down a little bit, and he takes on the appearance of a tall but old-looking dwarf that is holding the walking stick.
I'm gonna send a message to Hoyd, asking if I can play his son.
Okay, so you take out your little wire and whisper the message into the back of Hoyd's head.
Quietly.
It's supernaturally silent.
Right. I believe that was his response.
That was my response.
Yep.
Because I can only get like a word or two, right?
A few words, short sentence. Maybe like 3 words, 4 words.
I mean, all the spell description says is a message. A whisper.
Fine, as long as you're quiet.
Quick question. Sorry I wasn't here for the quick recap.
Yes.
Did I successfully retrieve the periapt from the fire?
You did.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that. Hey, recap for folks drawing. The Rurik offered a magic amulet called the Periapt of Health to the dragon-like entities that had accosted them, and it had then taken it from him, and over the course of this combat it had fallen into the now burning tree. With the aid of Rurik's patron deity, they were able to retrieve it, and with the aid of Zook and Prudence's mage hands.
And
yeah,
Fun fact.
What is it we're currently debating?
Related to what Prudence just typed. Fun fact, the length of a D&D round is approximately the length of a vine.
Aren't vines 10 seconds?
There's 7.
We're debating what to do about the approaching forces.
All right, that's the thing.
Also, yes, I am going to cast Disguise Self to... Wait, do I have a slot? I just have a slot. Okay, I'm going to cast Disguise Self to be a dwarf child, and I'm going to stand next to Hoyd.
Okay, I think that's your last level 1 spell
Yes.
slot, right? Okay.
For now, yes.
So
If you two are disguised as dwarfs, Rurik could act as some sort of relative to you, and I could be the bodyguard.
That seems fine, but
Again, quickly.
So as you're having this conversation, the sound of the hoofbeats get closer and closer. Now, as one of you sort of peeks around the fire, you can see 7 horses. Look to be very powerful. They're all white. They have armored barding on them, and atop them are what appear to be relatively well armored knights or guards of some kind. They don't have a standard that they're flying, but they look to be more well armored than your average highwayman. They're definitely not just someone who happened across you.
so what's our story here again?
I'm trying to disguise myself as somebody innocuous.
I got that, but what's our story for why this tree is on fire?
I'm working on that, and for the meantime, hide behind something. I'm trying to limit the number of us.
All right. I will. Is the tree the only? Is the burning tree the only source of cover?
There is a roughly 4-foot high rock boulder thing that I believe Zook spotted earlier, but otherwise this area, the only cover that you currently have is burning. So
So I plan to thank them for their swift aid and explain what we found about the tree.
Okay. Prudence
Well,
says, I plan to tell
since
the
we
truth
can be-
about me and simply not mention any of you.
My plan is to be, well, quiet, but also, like, quietly worried about the burning tree. Like, oh no, it's on fire!
Perfect.
Someone help!
Which is perfect as
since-
the one who started
Since
the fire.
both of you decided to disguise yourself as dwarves, I might as well adopt you.
Okay, so about 30 feet away, the horses come to a stop. They haven't quite caught sight of you, from what you can tell. That all of them are just kind of staring up, looking at the smoke rising from the trees. One of them in the center, you can't quite catch what they're saying, but they're clearly speaking amongst each other. And one from the center breaks off and begins to circle around the right side where the roots were. He's taking a fairly wide berth, he stays roughly 30 feet out, and makes his way around, and then as soon as he spots all of you, who is visible right now, by the way? Who's visible? Who's hiding?
Zook, Hoyd,
think
Prudence
everyone's
are
visible.
visible.
I think
So everyone's visible? Okay.
I'm in.
Everyone's visible. Hoyd, you're
I have no
disguised.
desire to hide because I'm clunky.
Okay. Zook, you're disguised as well. Shigun, are you more or less chilling? Shigun?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
No, I'm
Yeah,
with I'm with Boyd and Zook, and my intent is to basically be the bodyguard.
Okay. So you're just sort of standing over their shoulders, your arms crossed. As the individual starts coming around, Prudence takes a step forward and raises his hand. He says, "Hail!" Not quite loud enough, perhaps, to cover this distance and go over the fire, but at the motion, the person stops and raises an arm in greeting as well.
Wait, are we behind or in front of the tree?
From
Would you mind
the
drawing
group,
it
you're
quickly?
Yeah, I'll do a quick sketch. I really hope you guys don't get into combat. But not that you'll
I'm just
die.
asking 'cause-
You'll probably just demolish them. But this is a really, really, really quick sketch.
Spoilers?
Yeah.
I'm just asking because I thought we moved in front of the tree.
So here's the tree. Here where's where the top of the tree was. Here's that other tree that caught fire. Here's the tar that was coming out of it. I'll have to go and get the minis. You guys are all here. Ford's End is up this way.
Oops, that's a
And
town
that's I've already said it, so let's see. 1, 2, 3. I'll just do 3 for now. There's the group of 6, and the one is coming around. If I can get the meeple to stand correctly. The one's coming around in this direction. In hindsight, I should have drawn that a little closer to the camera, but oh well.
It's an adequate visual.
I'm not sure if it matters, Prudence. Just wanted to visual about who was where, that's all.
So,
I will also raise a hand in greeting alongside Prudence.
I assume the dwarves are standing in a group.
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so
step
you'll
forward,
be-
expecting him to talk to me.
like that. More or less like that is roughly where you guys are. Not that it matters immensely, but it's just nice to have the visual. So I'm
The
sorry.
tree is still actively burning, correct?
Yes, it's very much on fire. It's actually gotten to the point where you've had to take a step away from it because it's just too hot to stand next to.
Yeah, I would be keeping it a safe distance.
So Hoyd, you've also stepped forward.
Step forward, yeah, expectantly.
Okay. The rider gets a little bit closer. He's about probably 15 feet away from you now. He's relatively close to you. And you can see he's wearing a full helmet. There's a gold, what appears to be like a gold feather coming up from the top. Yes, Prudence, I did say he was 15 feet tall.
Big
No,
dwarf.
he's about 15 feet away. He is of the taller races, so he's dwarven, elven, half elven of some kind. He's wearing a full helm that's obscuring his face, and he raises the sort of front side of the helm, and you can see a darker skin, probably human, based on your essential knowledge of the races that live within Sundi. And he calls out to the group of you. Hail, travelers! This beacon caught our attention. Are you in need of aid? And as he's coming around,
it's a good thing you arrived when you did.
Yes. As he's coming around, he looks toward the other side of the tree, on your side, and sees the goop, tar, whatever, spread out onto the ground. That is also on fire. Yes, and why is that? He raises his hand, and the others come around to join him. One goes around the other side, but the others join him.
There might be more of them.
More of what? Prudence.
The dragons.
Prudence cuts in and says, "We're passing through. We've been accosted by draconic muggers." He points over to the two draconic beings, one of which is currently burning on the tree. The other is dead on the road. It says, "Dragons, you say? There haven't been dragons sighted in this area for probably a few hundred years."
And what are those
Be
things?
lucky.
He nods to the companion that's gone around, who comes down off of his horse and walks toward the entity, and he kneels down to the ground, just examining it for a moment. I believe there was somebody in the middle that was saying something that I cut off, and I'm sorry.
Oh, I was
no.
just saying, we must be lucky then.
Must be lucky. Princess, we barely held our own. Prudence, I would like you to make a deception check, please.
I mean, he's not lying. He did almost die.
Okay. Oh yeah, you almost died. That's
did.
right. So you believe you're telling the truth. All right. The other figure kind of pokes at it a bit with his sword in the scabbard and rolls it over and gives it a quick glance over. It's small, but it looks like one, sir. The first one. Well, if there's dragons, then we are going to have to report that. Probably go all the way up to the king. If necessary, we can possibly spare some reinforcements from the north to see if we can eradicate this problem.
So there are more?
He turns to you. I didn't say that. I just said, now that we've seen these ones, we just have to make sure to investigate. He's gonna roll a natural 1 on his investigation to see through your disguise.
I knew it. We're still in danger.
Now, there's no cause for alarm.
You should obey the young
fought
one,
them,
old
you
man.
know.
I don't think that, he takes a quick look around. I don't think we're in any danger now. You and your companions seem to have taken care of the problem, which is good. Saves us quite a lot of work, and for that we commend you.
That's what
But-
they want you to think.
You see an eyebrow quirk as he urges his horse to step a little closer. He leans down to look towards Zook. Is your father all right?
I look towards Rurik, expecting him to say something.
You'll have to forgive him. He's getting up there in age.
Is he?
Just gotten a
No,
little
I'm
bit
not.
Excited is all.
Could I have Rurik and Hoyd both make deception checks, please?
Oh boy.
Hoyd,
rolled for.
Hoyd with advantage because you have because you're doing disguise self.
Oh no, I don't have any bonuses in this. Oh boy. This will be great.
You do have advantage.
That's
No,
a 20.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do, because I just gave it to you. Enjoy it.
Oh.
Oh,
The G-
here you go.
The DM just said you did.
How did
Well,
you give me advantage?
I said Hoyd
the
did,
My inspiration.
but Hoyd is handing Rurik his inspiration die.
Oh. Alright then.
Wait, so you
Ooh.
both have advantage? Is that what's happening?
Hoyd has advantage because he's using magic to disguise himself. Rurik has advantage because
Also
Hoyd
actor.
has given Rurik his inspiration die.
What's the command for advantage again?
Question mark ADV.
And then
UDV
The-
plus something if you want to like add
the
a
die
modifier.
number?
No, just question mark ADV. It automatically does the D20 for you.
Oh, okay.
Or if you want to like
17.
advantage
'Cause-
plus something, you can just.
Because I know you don't have any modifiers, so we don't have to worry about
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. No, thank you, Hoyd.
And
Much appreciated.
Hoyd, what was your roll?
Although I could have.
20.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm gonna put this die. My brand new dice just rolled a 1 twice in a row.
Man,
I'm
you
really
got
upset
some
about
first
it.
Math rocks.
No,
Yeah,
it's not the quirk of the dice. That's the quirk of this guard.
My clicky clacky math rocks have betrayed me.
It's his character trait. He just has rotten luck.
Yeah.
That's his feat.
Maybe next time I'll give the character you encounter the luck feat.
No.
Anyway, the individual that you've been speaking to sort of makes a quick motion with his hand, and the other the other 5 guards. The one guard is still taking a look at the dragon-like being that you slew before, and the other 5 start circling around the area, just looking for tracks and such. And he says, if these were dragons, did you see where they came from? Did you see if there was perhaps a lair, anything like that?
No, they.
What are you looking for? They fly.
They ambushed us from the top of the tree, so we're not quite sure where they came from.
And he looks over to the tree. Well, they are probably not going to be doing that again.
I am inclined to agree.
I should hope not.
He sort of starts. He covers his nose and mouth with a gloved hand. Doesn't do a whole lot, unfortunately, but it helps. He says, "I've never seen anything like this before. We don't get trees this large in this part of the kingdom."
Yeah,
Wow.
it felt out of place to us as well, which is why we investigated it. Hence the henceforth encounter with said dragons.
Understood. Well, why don't I do this? He steps down from the horse, rummages around in his saddlebag for a moment, and takes out a small piece of parchment, thinks for a moment, and then quickly you see his fingertip touch the paper, and a small flash of light. He rolls up the parchment and hands it to Rurik. bring this with you if you ever happen to come by Bren. They'll see that you are adequately compensated for your troubles.
What'd you get there?
Would I have recognized that light as any sort of holy spell?
I'm looking curiously at the object.
Make an Arcana check.
Is the object glowing? What does it look like?
15. It's a scroll that he's handed, and he just quickly. You recognize the magic as not being divine in nature. You're not familiar with this particular spell as it is outside your particular domain of magic. But you know a cantrip when you see one.
Okay. Well, I graciously accept the scroll. Thank you, sir. We shall keep that in mind. What was the name of the town?
Bren, which actually happens to be the nearest capital city to where you are. You're currently in the county of Brennathar, which is neighboring.
Is that on our way, or would we
That
have
is
to...
on the way.
It's,
oh, excellent.
Yes, it's according to the map that was given to you by Larasa. It is directly on your way.
Ah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, sirs.
Yes, thank you for saving us a little bit of trouble. Now, if you don't mind, I think we might need to call somebody in to take care of this before the fire spreads. I recommend for your safety, you should perhaps move along.
Very well. We shall be on our way then.
Prudence says, we can go ahead and leave. So you...
With that, I start walking off.
Okay,
I follow.
so you start walking
follow.
down toward Ford's End. Would anyone like to do anything before heading down toward Ford's End? It's within eyeshot, but it's a good 2 hours off or so.
As we make our way past the guard, I recall you mentioned that they didn't have a standard, but I would like to cast a closer look at their armor and their general entourage as we walk by, looking for anything reminiscent of the Tarmarian sigils.
Okay. So I will say you do see there are crests emblazoned on their pauldrons, and there's a crest emblazoned across the chest piece of the armor. Even with a casual look, you can tell that it is not the symbol of the House Tarmarian. But if you could make a I'm trying to think about your background, if a check is even necessary.
That's Rurik, by the way.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Rurik.
Like, I might...
My knowledge of history excels in, like, stonework specifically.
Right,
as
as a
the
dwarf.
symbol at all? As a nobility house or anything like that?
So Shigun, you would recognize the symbol. It is the symbol of the current ruling house of Bren, which is appropriately named House Brennathar, of which the county is named after.
Oh, are you
It
keeping
appears.
notes for things? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I love it when I hear that. Well, you
We're
you do.
keeping notes?
You recognize the symbol of the House Brennathar, current ruling family of the county of Brennathar.
I think that
So-
would sufficiently answer my stuff as well. So.
Okay. Well, if
And
if
put it in the
Shigun
press.
shares this information with you, yeah.
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 I have no problem sharing it once we're kind of
Out of earshot.
Yeah, down the road a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. So you make your way down the road, and as you get out of earshot, Prudence just snaps and brings Deer back to him, and then continues to give her pets. She kind of sits on his shoulder, once again back in her familiar raven form.
Good. It's good to see Deer again.
That's right. Those were indeed Knights of Bren, so
Are we sufficiently out of eyeshot so that it wouldn't be alarming if we dropped our disguise?
Well, they might ride back in this direction. I wouldn't
Um,
recommend it.
You don't see them. I'll say that. You don't see them right now.
So they're definitely past cover.
Yeah, they're outside eyeshot at this point.
Okay, good. I will break the stick over my knee, toss it, and let my disguise fall.
Okay. So Hoyd, you go ahead and let your disguise drop. I believe, if I recall, disguise person lasts for 10 minutes. Is that correct?
An hour.
1 hour.
Oh, it lasts for an hour. Okay.
Oh, dang. That's generous.
Prudence says, yes, well, it's a good thing that she didn't die again.
Yeah. Can't
Seeing
exactly.
Hoyd dismiss the disguise, I do so as well.
Alright,
Can't
so both
exactly
of you...
blame you for not wanting to keep deer around this time, especially since we had adversaries that could potentially fly.
So you remove your disguise. You drop your disguises. There we go. And you make your way down toward the town of Ford's End. Now, as you approach Ford's End, it's interesting because you're familiar. You know, you were just in Darnek, a town on a lake, more of a thorp on a lake. As you approach Ford's End, you see another very large lake sort of approach, and you can see a very large river that runs out either side of it. Just want to make sure I get my places correct here. Yes. It's a very, very large lake and a river sort of trailing off into the distance that runs up to the east. That's sort of like the northeast. And whereas Darnek existed more as a place that kind of has to exist because something has to be there, Ford's End is clearly more of a thriving town. It's much larger. You can see several, as you approach, you can see several individual dock districts almost along the shore of this lake. You come down into the town. It's not a walled town, so you make your way into the town itself. It's probably late afternoon, early evening at this point. Prudence said, I only dismissed deer so that it seemed less dangerous to the people who were about to interrogate us. So Prudence, the most impressive building that you can spot, make a perception check.
Apparently Google does not have any information on what the kind of shop that sells archery goods would be called.
That
Fletcher?
would be a Fletcher, yes.
Yeah.
A Fletcher's a person who...
That's it.
Yeah,
Fletcher
person who
sounds
makes
right.
arrows and bows and such.
Okay.
So the guards, Hoyt, to answer your question, the guard that flipped up his helm had very dark skin, probably Blackloonish, which is a type of human that exists in Greyhawk. You did not see the faces of the other guards, but they did not appear to be, at minimum, their builds were not dwarven, gnomish, or halfling. They were of the larger races.
Okay.
But otherwise, their features were obscured by their helmets.
Okay, but they were height of humans.
Yeah, roughly human or elf height, etc. So Prudence with a 20. As you get to the outskirts of the town, there start to be a couple of farms here and there, and you look out toward the lake, and you see an enormous lighthouse, the tallest building in the town, and it looks almost out of place how large this thing is. With it's currently not lit at the moment, but as it's getting into the early evening, you can see there's activity just happening inside of it. It's hard to tell from a distance, but you can see, the very faint shapes of people scurrying around inside. That would be the most impressive building that you see. So you guys are beginning to make your way into Ford's End. It's roughly Late afternoon, early evening. What would you like to do here?
Is Bren the next town?
Bren is the next city. It is the capital city of the county you're currently in.
Okay.
So let me... This will be kind of not very good because the map doesn't show it very well on the camera, but... Push all of you out of the way. You were in Fandalo here. You've been making your way along this road here. Bren. So, let me put a marker. There's Fandalo. There's Bren. You're eventually going to make your way to Pitchfield up here. Ford's End. Yep. Ford's End is on a lake right here.
Alright.
Which is really hard to see. I turned off autofocus, which was stupid of me, but I'll send you guys a more player-friendly version of this map. The person who makes these maps, Anna Myers has not finished making the player version of that map yet, so I'm waiting for her to finish that up, and then I can get you a more player-friendly version of the map.
That was suitable for what I was wanting. That was perfect.
Yep. From what you can estimate, based on your general... You've never been this direction, but based on your sort of vague... actually, no, you have been in this direction, because you're from the mountains. But, no, you're not. Prudence is from this direction. But from your best estimation, it's further to Bren from Ford's End than it was from Nineveh to Ford's End. Nineveh is maybe 2 or 3 days out from Ford's End, and then from Ford's End to Brennathar, or excuse me, Bren is... Let me check the little... is another probably 4 days. Ish. So you're approaching the outskirts of this town. You start to see more and more people are coming along. This is very clearly a like a hub of some kind. You see trade carts. You see people passing through with very heavy travel garments. What would you like to do?
Sorry, just coughing. What time is it?
Early afternoonish. Sorry, excuse me, late afternoon, early evening-ish. There we go.
Okay. I would like to head over to the Oarsman's Respite, eventually.
Okay. Prudence says, what's on everyone's list of priorities? I want to find out what that is, points over to the lighthouse, and then, get to a market as soon as possible so I can spend some gold.
I might see if I can't find a local clergy or a temple.
I think I have a story to tell.
Okay.
Or I think I have a story to tell, or 2 or 3.
Oh.
So,
you never run out of stories, do you?
Not particularly. You guys give me so many.
Alrighty, so Prudence would like to check out the lighthouse. Hoyd, you mentioned going to the Oarsman's Respite, which Zook you're also familiar with. It's a tavern not too far from the water. A tavern inn not too far from the water. Rurik and Shigun. Rurik, you said you wanted to try and find the local temple or clergy?
Yes.
Alright, and then Shigun, do you have anything?
Shigun, why don't you come with us?
I had my mic muted.
Oh.
Oops.
What was that, Hoyd?
Shigun, why don't you come with us?
Sure, why not?
Is there time to shop, do you think? I figure there probably is.
It's not sundown. So, let's see. Sounds like we've got 3 places we're going to be going. We have Prudence going to the lighthouse. Looks like Shigun and Hoyd are going to the Orman's Respite.
Is
Deer
Zook
is
coming
back.
too?
And then Rurik is going to try and find the clergy, unless he'd like to do that after the Orman's Respite. It's up to him. Or after the lighthouse, whichever he chooses to do.
I don't really mind particular order or anything.
Well, I would like to know where Rurik's going to decide where I'm because maybe like okay, wait, maybe
No, actually, for now, I'll accompany Prudence because I'm also curious about the lighthouse.
Okay. Whoop.
well in that case then I'll go with the group heading to the Orman's Respite in order to book a reservation, though I do plan to shop later.
Okay. So Zook and company. I will...
We almost split into 4 different groups there.
Yeah, you know, I love it when you guys split the party. It's my favorite
You'd
thing.
appreciate that.
It's just absolutely my favorite thing. I'll separate you guys slightly.
Split up, gang.
Yeah, there's no way that they can get us in here. Alright. So.
No, this isn't like that kind of splitting up the party. That was a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
I'm sorry
So-
for being so inconvenient.
What I will do is I'll do the group going to the Orman's Respite first. Then I will switch over to Prudence and Rurik, if that's alright with everybody.
I'm fine with that.
Sure.
Okay. So the 3 of you make your way through the town. You eventually end up parting ways as the whole group gets to the Orman's Respite, and then Prudence and Rurik, you split off to continue on toward the docks or toward the shoreline rather, to see what's the deal with the lighthouse. So you get to the Orman's Respite. It's a relatively small building, squat. It looks like it extends back a little ways. There's 2 floors. Lower floor, there's a bunch of very wide windows. Upper floor, there are a couple of smaller windows, more likely where the rooms are for rent. There are a couple of rough-looking individuals hanging around the outside, either having been kicked out for being too drunk or taking care of the ones who had been kicked out for being too drunk. The door is more or less open, just held open about halfway on its own. You can see some relatively rough-hewn wood lining the outside of the building. Looks like it hasn't been refurbished in quite a while. What do you guys?
I wave at the gentleman standing outside and push on it.
Okay. The more sober of them look up at you and look at how you're dressed and grunt. Okay.
Do you have an issue, sir?
Nope.
Are you
Don't want
sure
no
about
trouble.
that?
Don't want no trouble today. Don't think you'd want no trouble today neither, so best be on your way.
I suppose. And I push in.
Okay. Yeah, he's not in the way of the door, he's just kind of to the side. Okay, so you enter the Oarsman's Respite. There we go. The interior of the room is relatively well lit. There's a couple of torches around the walls. It's a pretty smoky interior. It is a little hard to see because of the haze, but it's a relatively packed interior. There's lots of individuals. A couple of travelers here and there. You can tell that they're travelers because they don't look like they chew on rocks for a living. And there's a plethora of what you and Zook know to be sailors or people who work on the docks. It is fairly busy. It is fairly busy, and it is fairly loud on the interior as the evening is beginning to draw to a close.
I'm going to make my way over to the bar and try to flag down Amara.
Okay. Does the rest of the group, are you following Hoyd?
I am, yes.
Why don't you guys grab a table?
Zook, what
Table
was that?
sounds good.
Okay.
Are there
Alrighty.
any free tables in this area?
Taking a quick glance around, this isn't really the type of establishment to have individual tables. There appear to be 4 long gang-style tables. There are a couple of spaces... Sorry?
Yeah. So it's just kind of find some empty seats and go from there.
Yep, that works.
Yeah,
Okay.
you are able to spot 3 seats on these benches near each other. There's 2 next to each other and 1 across toward the end of one of the tables. So
Har.
Rurik and Zook, you make your way over, and people at the sight of a burly dwarf, people do actually step out of your way.
You mean Shigun and Zook?
I think you mean Shigun.
Oh, that's Shigun. Sorry, I got you guys mixed up. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
But nonetheless, at the sight of a burly human wielding a sword and shield, people do step out of your way. Almost to the detriment of Zook, because they almost immediately fill the space back in, and Zook, you're sort of having to fight your way through the people who may not even see you because of your size.
Let's give my halfling friend a chance here. I meant gnome.
Halfling!
Sorry. I meant to say gnome. I legit meant to say gnome.
Oh boy.
God dang.
Greyhawk. Full of racism.
Already flip.
So
Come on,
you
let
make
my
your
gnome
way
friend
over.
I would talk your ear off about how lazy I think halflings are, but we're kind of in a busy crowd.
Let's see. This one. So, you each make your way over. As you say this, the one of the people at a nearby table looks at Zook and then looks back to you and says, "Oh, nice traveling companion. How much did he cost?"
Don't worry about it.
If you say so. He turns back to his drink. You make your way back to the seats and go ahead and take a seat. Hoyd, you make your way up to the bar. You find an empty space. The bar itself is actually the more populated of the area, so it is a little bit difficult to find a space at first. But you do that thing where you stand behind somebody else waiting for them to leave, and they eventually get pressured into stepping away. And you step up to the bar. And looking down the row, you can see 3 bartenders. There are 2 human male bartenders, and at the very end, you spot Amara. Down at the end, a female tiefling. Her sort of ashy dark skin, almost standing out in the dark room, simply just because of the skin color. There are a number of individuals at the end of the bar who are heckling her and calling over to her and saying things like, "Yeah, why don't we show us what that tail's good for, ah?" And they're all kind of just shouting at her, and then another.
May I offer you some inspiration for these insults?
Sure.
The way you described her, she looks like a drow.
It's sort of. She does have prominent horns coming out of her forehead, and her hair is actually black, not white. But
Well, I mean, how many of these people have seen a drow?
How many of these people have seen anything other than a human is the real question.
Fair.
There are a lot. So, for reference, all of you would know this because you've been living in Sundi. Sundi is roughly probably 30% elf, 50% human, and then a mix of everything else on the other side. Mostly dwarf, and then some of the other races. So elves are not uncommon, but drow in particular, probably not in these people's lifetimes.
Drow are elves, but I see your point.
Yes. Specifically, they'd be... I forget what kind of elf. But anyway. They... As this is going on, Hoyd, you can see Amaya gives a quick glance over to the other two bartenders who both cover their ears. And taking their cue, because you know Amara moderately well, you cover your ears as well. And she says, she quickly does a crack with her tail, and the sound echoes through the room. As the sound, it just, here we go. The sound just rocks through the room, and everyone falls silent. Even the people who were heckling her kind of give her a look of mixture of fear and interest. And she says, "That's your first warning. Let's not make it a second, shall we?" She flashes her very bright white teeth. You can see her fangs coming down slightly. As everybody else who is already familiar with what is going on here returns to their meal, the individuals slowly start to back off. One of them bumps into another patron who turns around and shove off, and pushes him over, and he stumbles into his two friends, and they start getting into a small argument off to the side. Amara kind of shakes her head and starts walking down the length of the bar, just more or less checking in on all of the patrons, and comes across Hoyd, stops, goes past you, stops, and takes a step back. Oh God.
It's been too long.
Not long enough. Hoyd, what do you want?
Oh, be kind. Fancy some work tonight?
She rolls her eyes.
I'll keep them in line.
I think they try to keep themselves in line well enough, and you look over and you can see the one that had shoved the individual that had stumbled is now just getting wailed on by his three companions.
I see that.
and Shigun and Zook, you did hear this conversation and you heard the crack, but otherwise have essentially no context for this, so you're just seeing a beatdown take place in front of you in the bar, because this is over toward where you're sitting.
This place sure is lively, isn't it?
It's a bar full of sailors. What else do you think? Well, what else would you expect?
That explains the comment I earlier.
There are a couple of people nearby who are a couple people cheering. There's actually some gold being passed around as people are betting on how long it's going to take for that person to pass out.
I'm gonna go break it up, Zook.
No, it's a fun show.
I could make them stop. I could throw them out.
So anyway, I have a tale to tell, and my companions need lodging.
Alright, well, just you and the... How many... Define your companions. She looks around the room. There's probably
just the two over there, the odd ones.
She kind of gives you a sidelong look. Kiddo, you know everyone here is odd. She looks over toward... She actually spots Zook before she spots Shigun. But I see what you mean. Just the three of you?
For the moment. I have others, but they'll fend for themselves.
Alrighty. Well, you know... she takes another close look over towards Zook. Is this going to be an hourly or a nightly rate?
Nightly, please.
Suit yourself. Suit yourself. You know the drill. Gold a night per room.
I just kind of roll my eyes and shake my head a little bit.
I'm a bit aggravated by the implication, but I don't say anything.
She sees you
Fine, here
roll
you
her.
go.
She sees you roll your eyes and she shoots you a wink, Zook. And I'm sorry, Hoyd, what was that?
Fine, here you go. Flip a 3.
It was Shigun who did the eye rolling.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Shigun. Sorry.
Yeah.
Y'all sound the same to me. All you humans are the same. Anyway, I realize that Zook, you're not human. Anyway,
Tries to be
So you-
racist, doesn't succeed.
I was talking more about the player, but moving on. So you give her the 3 gold, and she kind of spins one of the gold pieces in her hand. All right. Well, I'll make sure to hold 3 of the rooms for you. Make sure nobody tries
appreciate
to interrupt you. You know the drill. She slides what is more or less you know those do not disturb tags that go on the outside of the door? That's she
Yeah, I
slides
do.
3 of those. She slides 3 of those that are numbered to you. There's no key attached, but the 3 tags she slides over to you.
I make them disappear into my pocket.
This is like that one Sherlock scene.
You sleight of hand them into your pocket, or do you just put them in your pocket?
I just put them.
Okay.
There's no reason to slide a hand.
Okay, so you slip them into your
I
pocket.
I did pay for them.
Yes. Well, since you've paid for the night, what would you like to drink? You know everything's on the house. Food will cost extra, but she looks around the room. You can tell some people here have paid up for the hour and are taking full advantage of it.
I see. I'll have my usual wine, and what of the 2 of them want?
She nods to one of the other bartenders who makes their way over to you, Shigun and Zook. It's a older human man, kind of relatively wrinkled skin, darker skin, similar to the individual you encountered before. And he
Do gnomes have drinks?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes. Gnomes have all of
You
the
have a
drinks.
god of the drink.
You have a god of alcohol.
I wanna
Basically, any silly and fantastical human drink that's in the real world is attributed to the gnomes in Greyhawk.
be fantastic.
So like the frou-frou drinks at Applebee's.
Yes.
So like the frou-frou drinks at
Okay.
Applebee's, but also like they turn you blue because why the fuck not?
And also better.
Pan-galactic gargle blaster.
What?
Yes, Prudence, there are pan-galactic gargle blasters.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds.
Oh no, you don't know what that is?
That's
Oh, no.
from
No, I
the Hitchhiker's Guide.
Well, you
and
have a
it's
thing to Google.
What it sounds like.
It sounds
Um,
like it would be from Hitchhiker's Guide. Yeah.
Hoyd, she
Oh boy.
Amara snaps her fingers, and one of the other bartenders brings her a bottle of wine that you recognize as being the same bottle of wine that you had the last time you were here. That's been
What's,
very, very carefully preserved. Go on.
I'm afraid to ask because I have a low constitution modifier, but what's my alcohol tolerance like?
So, drinking alcohol is actually, if you believe it or not, covered in the Xanathar's Guide. It's more or less
Oh, of
with
course.
each it's more or less with each drink you take, you make successive Constitution checks against an increasingly higher DC, and depending on what you're drinking, it's either you like if it's a drinking contest, for example, it's you lose the drink and or pass out, or you get drunk. Depending on what you're aiming for, the DC is different.
Well, I
But
mean,
yes,
I
it
just...
There are actual mechanics for it, believe it or not.
That,
Well, I'm not really familiar with gnome drinks or real-life fruity drinks, so I just want, like, something light, something preferably cherry. Just, like, 1 cupful, and then I'm done. Because
Okay.
I'm gonna go shopping.
Okay, so you ask for a gnomish drink called the Red Top. It has a bit of a fruity initial taste, and then as you get toward the bottom of the drink, it starts to turn more sour almost. Not quite, like tart lemony, but it slides a little bit more in that direction. And he nods and walks away and goes to fetch your drink. Shigun, is there anything that you order?
Yeah, I'll take some wine as well. What options do they have?
Well, so there's the option of essentially the same type of wine that Hoyt has. It's sort of a darker, older vintage. The actual cost of the bottle itself you do have to pay for initially, but then they'll store it for you forever, basically, until it's gone. Versus they have less expensive wines as well that are covered, and they also have just ale that's covered.
How much would one of those bottles cost?
One of those bottles costs... It was 2 gold for the bottle. It's a relatively... It's an average size bottle, but like I said, if you don't drink all of it, they will store it for you.
I think I would like to purchase one of those now.
I think at the current exchange rate, that's $200.
Sure. It is 200 copper. So,
Actually, wait, no, I misremembered, because I did the calculations for this, trying to, like, turn D&D money into GURPS money for fun a while back, and it's 1 copper piece is $2, so it's actually $400.
Sure.
That's a wine.
So you pay the 2 gold, and he nods. He comes back with Zook's drink, the Red Top, and pours a bottle of the wine, a small sort of mouthful of the wine for Shigun, and waits for you to taste it.
Tastes fine to me.
Okay. He pours the rest of the bottle and walks away from the table with the bottle.
Alright.
Hoyd, do we have you back?
You do.
Alrighty. So what are you up to?
I am going to find the nearest empty seat. Is there
Okay.
one near me?
So there's
There's one near us.
There's an empty seat that's next to Shigun and Zook. The nearest empty seat to you would be directly behind you at the
Okay.
nearest bench.
How tall is the ceiling?
7 feet. It's not particularly high.
Okay. I'm going to stand on the chair and put 1 foot on top of the table.
Okay. So you Captain Morgan on the table.
Exactly. Gentlemen, I have a tale for you tonight.
Okay. So as you call out across the bar, the bar's fairly loud. Your voice doesn't carry very well, and Amara from behind you goes, "Hold on, I've got this." Gentlemen! Her voice projects out, much, much louder than you know to be natural.
Oh boy.
Everyone stops and looks over toward Amara. Again, she seems to be relatively good at catching the attention of her patrons. She sort of just nods up to you.
Thank you, Amara. I have a tale for you tonight. It is called The Knight and the Goblin Fortress.
Oh, you mother...
I think I'm gonna let this.
I am.
A couple of people nearby kind of take their drinks and look at you curiously. Some other conversations in the distance begin to strike back up, but they're remaining respectfully quiet.
I'm watching. I'm sipping my red top.
Mm-hmm. So I proceed to tell the tale of how my wandering party encountered a vile goblin den. And at my immediate peril, the brave knight slew the goblin in front of me and then rescued the rest of the party.
As you mention and go into fairly intricate detail of the deaths of these goblins, with each one that you describe, there's a rousing cheer from the crowd.
Not sating his bloodlust, dropped into the den itself. Rushed an even greater monster that has no name. Slew him and 2 others in one sweep. And upon reaching the last goblin, in his unerring benevolence, chose to let him live. Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm
the
gonna roll
knights.
my eyes at the omission of details.
How much detail do you go into over the course of this
Explicit.
tale? Okay, so you are going into quite good detail. Some details you are not aware of, because some of the creatures were killed before you saw them, but...
Well, my impression from the way he described that was that he was like attributing, it was like, oh, look at this cool thing that me and a knight and no one else did.
I would never.
Okay.
So, towards the end of the performance, I make some small fireworks appear over Shigun's head.
Okay, so as you come to the conclusion of your story, you, with a flourish of your hand, you point over toward Shigun, and Shigun, you see above you a series of flashes of light appear above you just to highlight your presence.
I shoulder bump him like, huh?
Our hero.
I will raise my wine glass.
The people nearest to you kind of give you a little cheer. There are others in the room that appear to be a bit more skeptical, but for the most part, people are getting into the energy and the swing of this story.
So, I will also have you know I used my enthralling performance.
Oh, because of course you did. Hang on.
Of course I did.
All
I wish I
right.
had some idea what was going
Glamour
on.
Bard
Does that
3.
hit me?
Background stuff.
Let's see. If you perform for at least 1 minute, blah blah blah.
Does that hit me? Because I was like so into this.
You choose a number of humanoids within 60 feet who watched and listened, up to a number equal to your charisma modifier.
3.
So you choose 3, just 3 random individuals throughout the room?
Random folk from the bar, one of them being one of the guys in the fight.
Okay. One of the ones, let's see, one of the ones who was at the bar harassing, or one of the one that got bumped into? Doesn't matter.
The winner of the fight? Doesn't matter.
The winner of the fight? Well, in that case, as you began this story, the person who got bumped into and shoved and subsequently got pummeled has been dragged out of the bar. So, one of them. So 3 random people. Let's see if they succeed on their wisdom saving throws. You know what? Sailors are sort of just chock full of. They got a whole lot of wisdom. Oh my god. Oh my god. That is the third one in a row on this die. Okay, that's more like it. That's a 17, which I think succeeds.
That's a total of 20.
And that's a, Jesus Christ, that's a 2. Alright. So, 2 out of the 3 are enthralled. They're charmed. They, blah blah blah, effects after 1 hour. Okay, so the 2 that were eventually charmed, one of which was one of the people that had been in the fight, they start to sort of drift in your direction. They're not actively making any real effort to push through the crowd toward you, but they do start drifting in your direction. And then the third that you intend to enthrall has no idea that this happened.
Right. So I'm going to, after my story, park down right next to Shigun and Zook.
Okay. In this case, you'd be across the table, but yeah.
Fine. Close enough. Socially next to.
I'm sorry?
Adjacent.
Socially adjacent. Fine.
Socially adjacent, yes.
Yes.
There are a couple of people who enjoyed the tale. They clap you on the back as you walk by. A few others kind of give you an okay guy kind of look on the way by. But no one seems to take issue with what you've done. Amara from behind the bar kind of looks at the three of you and just puts her hand up to her, like about the bridge of her nose, and just shakes her head. So you go and sit, and your wine is brought to you. At this distance,
Yes.
without shouting, she wouldn't be able to hear you.
And yes, Prudence, that is why.
I'm sorry? Oh, Prudence.
Prudence
Sorry.
just typed something.
Prudence said, the skeptical people are why you keep trophies. And the reason bards wear fancy hats is so that they can collect tips in novel containers.
I should
So-
try that.
What did you think? To Shigun and Zook.
Great story.
Maybe a tad embellished, but I'd say it was quite enjoyable.
See? Great
Did you-
story.
Did you enjoy it?
Of course I did.
Then it worked.
Am I nearing the bottom of my cup?
Yeah, at this point, the performance itself took about a minute, and then there's a little bit of time afterwards, so you'd be getting toward the bottom. It's a bar, so they kind of stiff you a bit on the drinks, but you do make your
Am
way
I
down
at
to
the
the
part
bottom.
where it's sour?
Yes.
Okay, I want to try and, like, cast Prestidigitation to, like, make it a green apple sort of sour, just for fun.
Okay. I think Prestidigitation, you can mildly modify the flavor or something.
Flavor. Up to 1 cubic foot of non-living material.
That's a lot.
Which, yeah, it's way overkill.
Yeah, you chill warm or flavor up to 1 cubic foot. Jesus, that is a lot. Okay,
It's
so
a lot of
you
flavoring.
you kind of you swirl the drink around in your cup, and with a quick snap of your fingers, it doesn't visually change unless you want it to.
I don't.
Okay, it doesn't visually change, but you take a sip, and it's much more of like a green apple sour type of taste, and less of a citrusy type taste. Sour.
What?
Alrighty. What's up?
Hoyd said something.
I didn't.
Someone said sour.
You
I said
probably
sour.
heard my coaster clinking.
No, somebody said the word sour.
I said the word sour.
Just... Okay,
Anyway,
It's the ghost.
yeah, I think it's the ghost of characters past, of which you currently have none in this group. So enjoy that while it lasts.
Ooh, foreboding.
You just get the Doom characters from JoJo.
Hoyt gets a
coming up.
shiver out of nowhere.
So is there anything else you'd like to do during this particular social encounter?
No, I think that's all I need. I hand them each one of my paid for room key.
No, just
Okay, so they're not exactly keys. They're just kind of a piece of
Right.
material
They're a piece
with
of
a number
don't
on it.
bother me.
Yeah, they're a piece of Don't Bother Me. They look like, I mean, you know, because you've rented night rooms here before. They get hung on a hook on the outside of the door, and then you can lock the door from the inside.
So it's a ticket.
It's a room ticket,
Yes,
more or less.
exactly that. Nothing more.
And if for example the cleaning staff, of which there are 3 bartenders, those are the cleaning staff, they're numbered. So Prudence asks what stops someone from taking one and hanging out on their own door. They're numbered. They correspond to each room.
Social convention.
I mean, if you take a number 6 and hang it on door 7, then they'll know it was moved. So, alrighty. So I'm gonna draw this scene to a close. We're gonna scene shift. Gonna reverse about 45 minutes
I'm gonna
or so.
throw my drink back and head to the shop just at the end of the scene transition.
Okay. So you knock back your drink and go to stand up and start making your way back out of the tavern. I'll come back to you in this, where we'll scene shift, reverse about half an hour-ish, and catch up to Prudence and Rurik, who have just bid each of you adieu, and are making your way toward the shoreline. So you, excuse me, you get down toward the shoreline. You can smell fish. You can smell various aquatic things. You smell musty wood and so on, of materials that have been left out. And you round one corner, and right there in front of you is this lighthouse. It's a very large structure, but it's very oddly shaped. It has a very wide base that quickly narrows to the top. So it's less of a straight up tower and more, pyramid's not quite the right word, but it's a lot more conical than a building. Sort of. A spire does
wizard hat.
Sort of. Like a spire does narrow towards its top, but it is still relatively cylindrical and it's tall. This is like a 70-foot wide base that narrows to a smaller top at the very, very top. About, you would estimate, 5-6 floors up. And at the very top there is an open space. At the top of it is what appears to be an entirely open space, not even glassed in. And as the night has been progressing, you see a brilliant white light erupt from the top. You can't quite see what it is from this from down at the base, but you see a very bright white light begin to emit from the top.
Does it look like natural or normal light, or would it appear magical in nature?
Looking at it, it's almost pure white light. It's definitely not flame. Like without even making you do a check, you can tell that this is almost certainly magical, or at least chemical. It is most certainly not natural fire.
This seems.
Oh yeah, we scene shifted. I shouldn't be using this music anymore. Let's try this one.
Well,
So like it looks obviously like an LED.
Pretty much. This is the fantasy equivalent of an LED.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Well then, I'd be interested in finding out more about this. Waiting on Prudence to say something. They appear to be typing.
Those are the best encounters. Waiting for Prudence to type.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, so Prudence doesn't say anything.
Sorry, I thought they were about to say something. It looked like they were typing. My bad.
Yep. I mostly like to verbalize this, or vocalize this rather, so because I listen to this later on, and then I'm like, what am I talking about if I don't read out the words? So, and it's for the benefit of folks who like to have voices attached to things. So
Maybe people are listening to the stream instead of watching it.
yeah, imagine
Or
that.
the video.
Like
It's
there's nothing to
turning
watch.
point in the future.
Not
Yeah,
right
there's
now.
nothing to watch right now. So, you guys are just getting to the base. There is a relatively large clearing. The nearest building to it appears to be a row of more or less individual cabins almost, just sort of in a row to one side. But the nearest building after those is probably a good 40 feet away.
I will try to identify where the entrance of the lighthouse is.
Okay.
Approach.
Alrighty. Yeah, so you make your way up toward this lighthouse. There are quite a few people walking through this area. It doesn't appear that they are avoiding the structure in particular. And it doesn't take long. You only have to walk around it just a minute or so, and then you can get to the entrance. It's a plain wooden door set into the side. The threshold itself is weathered. It's starting to show its age, and you can see iron banding across the door. There's a large iron knocker in the upper center, and a very large handle in the lower center. Okay. Prudence, do you use the knocker or just on it with your hand? You're right, the knocker is there for a reason. So Prudence steps forward and takes a hold of the knocker and just... You can hear the sound of the knocker hitting the wood, echoing beyond it. And a moment passes, and then you hear from the other side of the door, "Yes?" Prudence says, "Hello, we're curious travelers, and we'd like to talk." You hear on the other side of the door, well... You hear several locks being undone. You sit and wait, and it's a good 30 seconds. There's probably 16 different clunks and slides and chains that you hear as this door is unlocked. And finally, you see the handle in the center of the door, which it projects out. It's more like a, like, you know, a shovel handle. How there's the horizontal section you take a hold of that then goes down the length.
Yeah.
It's shaped like that, like a stirrup almost. You see that turn 90 degrees, and the door opens up slowly, just. And it appears the individual is taking several tries to open the door, because it starts to open and then stops, and then opens a little further and then stops, and then opens a little further and then stops. And finally, a hunched, what appears to be elven individual. You can see his ears poking out from under a tangled mess of light hair. Unusually for an elf, you can see that he has very heavy wrinkles across his face, and there is a bald spot on the top of his head. He looks up at the two of you. Doesn't look up at Rurik, but looks up at Prudence. He's about eye level with Rurik with his hunch. "Oh, travelers indeed. What is it that you would like to know?" Prudence says, "What an impressively secure door. I've been struck by this building since the moment I arrived to town. And, I'm sorry. I've not introduced myself." I'm just going to wait for Prudence to finish typing so I know what he would like to say. Prudence gives his standard introduction, rehearsed many times. Yes, I am Prudence. I'm a professor of history and some of the more obscure knowledge topics. What would you describe as the story behind this? Kind of looks up to the top. Lighthouse. The older gentleman. You can see he starts to stretch. You can hear crack 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 as the joints in his back pop pop pop. And he slumps back down into his hunch. Well, this is the lighthouse that we use to make sure that the boats coming down along the Pitchfield River are able to call to port at night. It's been here for longer than the town has been. Not many actually know or are interested in its origins. He kind of rubs one of his eyes. You say that you are a professor of some kind? He looks down toward Rurik, and his expression doesn't sour, but hardens slightly. He says, interesting companions you take along with you for a scholar.
I'm somewhat of a scholar myself, only my knowledge is more inclined toward the medical.
Dr. Dwarf. How interesting. He strokes the bottom of his chin about where a beard would be if elves could grow beards.
Elves can't grow beards?
No.
No, elves cannot grow facial hair.
Huh, I did not
Prudence
know
says, Prudence says, you can learn the most from the people who are least like you. And as he's saying that, Deer kind of pokes her head down over toward the man's face, and he takes a step back. Well, it's going to be quite dark out soon. Why don't you come in and we can perhaps see what information I can give you. Grey elves. That's what they are. Sorry, I've forgotten. The grey elves are relatively common in Sundi. The king is a grey elf. Prudence says, You've been very kind. I would not want to impose. The man shakes his head. Oh, not imposing at all. It is not very common that there are the more intellectually inclined in this town. It's not very often I get to speak with people who can actually understand me, if you take my meaning. He steps back from the door and kind of motions inward. The inside is illuminated with a similar white light, almost like a fluorescent light. It's a very unnatural light, and it takes your eyes a moment to adjust. Prudence, you give Deer a little scratch on one side of her head, and you say, "Behave," and walk into the room. Walk into the lighthouse, and he kind of waves Rurik on behind him.
Your gesture is most appreciated. Thank you. And I will follow Prudence inward as well.
Okay. So as you step in, the elven gentleman struggles to close the door behind you, and it takes him a couple of tries, but does eventually close the door. It's a very heavy and thick door, and he says, "Hold on, this will be but a moment." And he goes and starts relocking all of the various locks. You can see, in addition to the 16 locking mechanisms that you heard him unlock before, You can also see next to the door there are about 10 others that are just simply not engaged. Princess, why does your door need to be like this? Wouldn't a simple door suffice?
I was about to ask that myself.
The gentleman looks between you both. Clever observation. Well, why don't I come in and we can have something to drink and I will enlighten you. He waves you down. As you enter, it's this brightly lit space. It's tough to identify where exactly the light is coming from. You don't see any torch sconces or, Prudence, you're familiar with the arcane magic that can create light. And it doesn't appear that there are any points of light or any objects that are emitting a specific light, but you do see sort of light almost suffusing throughout this space. You look down and you do not have a shadow, just due to the nature of the light being carried through the space. You shuffle down. Go ahead.
I just made a comment how eerie.
Mm-hmm. It actually takes you a second to get your bearings because you're not used to not having a shadow to judge how high your feet are off the ground. So it takes you a second to get used to walking without having that visual confirmation.
Who turned Matt Fulbright on?
So you follow this elf as he shuffles down a short hallway, and you eventually come to a small, what appears to be a study. You can see books lining one wall. There's a fireplace that is not lit, a desk that he sits behind that's just covered in papers and books, and he bids you sit. There are two relatively plush chairs. You do have to brush the dust off of them. They appear not to have been used for quite some time, but he is prepared. Okay, yeah, make a perception check. Prudence, if you'd like to take a look at the books and glance. 6. Well, in that case, you see what languages you know. Okay. You give the books a quick cursory glance, and you recognize the script. You can see many of them are written in Elven, but that is not a language you know, unfortunately. You do see others that concern mostly freshwater navigation and boats and so on. There are a few books that you yourself have read in your studies. It appears this library is extremely varied in its subject matter, but none that particularly stand out to you. Not with a 6 anyway. And as the two of you sit, Rurik, the chairs were unfortunately designed with humans and elves in mind, so your feet kind of dangle off the edge of the chair. The elf.
No problem, I'm used to it.
Yes, this is a very familiar feeling to you. The elf kind of sits down. You can hear his chair creak underneath him, and he.
I'm sure it's his chair.
It's there's a lot of creaks, so it's a lot of things. Yes, that's why you carry a large backpack. It works like a stepladder when you need it.
Exactly.
Yes. The elf flicks his fingers, and in each of your hands a small teacup appears and fills, and you can smell tea inside. And he says,
That was a neat trick.
You'd have to taste it to find out. Let's see. Let's do this one. Yeah. Raising the tea up to your nose, you give it a quick sniff. It does not appear to be sweetened at all.
Is this turning into that one scene from Thor Ragnarok?
Maybe. You don't know yet.
I haven't seen that film, so I have no idea.
Okay. So you wrinkle your nose slightly at the smell, but you don't say anything. The individual looks to Rurik. Says, "Yes, I've learned a great many tricks over my time. It's not common," he kind of taps his forehead, "for one of these to really get used to their fullest potential. So this is what I am protecting." He kind of holds his hands out and gestures toward the books and the various tomes and scrolls and so on around him. "The light at the top of the tower requires a very delicate touch to maintain, and there are very few who actually understand how it works. It would be difficult to explain to the average person, but I'll do my best to simplify for the two of you. You see, when you use magic, that magic is pulled from this energy. And in order to use magic, as a wizard would do, you have to know certain words and motions, and sometimes you even need to draw energy from various materials. You see, this is the basis of magic." And Prudence, as he's having this explanation, you interrupt. You say, "Luckily, I am a trained wizard. You do not need to simplify as much." And at the mention of the word wizard, he kind of sits up a little bit in his chair and looks at you closely. "Interesting. Very interesting. Well, you may, in that case, recognize the ability to create light with magic. Even the most novice of spellcasters, as he says the word spellcaster, you actually take your spellbook out and hold it out, and his eyes widen. So you are. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, in that case, to whom do I have the pleasure of speaking?" He gestures toward both Rurik and Prudence. So Prudence, you repeat your introduction, the one that you've already given to him. And you can see as you complete your introduction, you explain you're a professor and all that. You can see something sort of solidify in his mind. You gather you've worked with this type of individual before in your magic studies. He didn't actually listen to you at the door, but as soon as you demonstrated that you have magical knowledge, that he started retaining this information. He says, "Prudence, and your friend here, you Dwarf, Dr. Dwarf, your name is?"
My name is Rurik. And
Rurik.
Yes. And while I am a doctor, I am also a cleric of the faith. And,
a cleric of the faith.
I suppose it's more correct to say of faith in general. What little magical tendencies I possess are more towards the divine.
Ah, yes. Calling upon a god to do your bidding. I'm familiar. To which do you owe allegiance?
My patron is His Radiance Palor.
Palor. Well, you won't have any trouble finding others like you. If you make your way toward the Bren side of the town, you should be able to find a temple that you will fit in very much at home.
Well, thank you. I had a particular interest in this lighthouse because I saw the brilliant light coming forth, and I had a curiosity if it might have been related to Halor in some capacity. But now I see it is more in the sense of the arcane.
He nods. Yes, I can see why you may believe that the magic would have to be of divine nature, but no, this magic is extremely complicated. You are a life domain cleric, I believe, right?
Yes, I'm life.
Okay. So it's you may be familiar, as I was saying to Prudence, that magic can be used to create light. This is very similar in nature, but on a much larger scale.
There goes Zook.
Zook dropped out. Alrighty, we'll keep an eye on it and see when he comes back.
I'm somewhat familiar with the workings of magic. And as I say that, I take out I'll take out a silver piece out of a pocket and I'll cast light on it and make it glow briefly before quelling it.
Okay. Yeah, so you pull out a silver piece and crush the bit of lightning bug in your other hand and cause a light to project outward. And then you close your hand and the light is diminished, is released. And he says, yes, it's the type of light that you see all around you is very similar, but not exactly of the same nature. It's the spell that I've been maintaining is, it takes a certain level of dedication to ensure that the spell remains active. That is why I stay here, and that is why I have to make sure that no one comes in to take me. Without me, the light fails. Without the light, Ford's End will not be able to exist. As he finishes that explanation, Prudence, you kind of, as an aside, just mention, I'd be open to sharing spells if you've the time and the inclination to copy any. And he nods and pulls a tome, what appears to be one of his own spell books, one of his own spell books out, and holds it for a moment just closely to himself. And you say, it seems like the sort of work that you do here is the type of work where you're generously compensated, perhaps to the degree where you can afford guards. And he scoffs. Guards are not necessary. I am perfectly capable of defending myself. Besides, they would only get in the way. No, I'd rather do my research in peace, and making sure that gods are doing their job is far from what I would like to be doing.
You mentioned you were maintaining a spell. Is this something that requires perpetual concentration and maintenance? Or is this only a nightly endeavor?
Well, the spell itself, while not being visible during the day, is still active. It is... concentration may not be the right word, But some of my energies are utilized at all time to ensure... Hang on a second. Sorry, just had a cough. To ensure that the light of the lighthouse is able to shine. He kind of cracks a smile. Like I said, it takes a bit of dedication. And Prudence says, "Oh, what sort of research do you do?" You can, Rurik, you can see a little spark in Prudence's eyes as he finally begins to be able to talk shop, as it were.
Like a kid in a candy store.
Yes. And have either of you drank any of your tea?
Oh, right. I actually forgot I had that. Yes, I by now I would have attempted to try some of the tea.
Okay. Yeah. So Prudence and Rurik, you both take the tea. It's pretty standard black tea. It's not particularly good, but it's not bad either. If you like black tea, then it'll be right up your alley. Otherwise, it's not terrible.
Rurik enjoys more of a stout alcohol, but a nice tea is good from time to time.
Okay. So over the course of this conversation, you're just sipping on your tea.
Yeah.
And the individual turns. Oh, well, perhaps you may have heard of me. I am the Mage Sarvellis, and I at one time taught very much the same way you did. I and my companions specialized in the creation of permanent magic such as this tower. This tower was not created, is much older than all of us, but similar enchantments, long-running enchantments, are sort of what we would look into. Nothing quite so paltry as individual magic items, but if you need an illusion to cover an entire city, that would be my small group of researchers.
That's quite impressive.
It is.
Thank you for the spelling.
Well,
That's crap.
our group did at one time catch the interest of the Circle of Eight, but none of us are interested in such grandiose problems, so we did decline the invitation. Rurik, you would not know about this. Prudence, you are very aware of the Circle of Eight, which is a group of 8 magic users that more or less work to maintain peace throughout the entire continent. They are some of the most powerful magic users in the world.
You mean they're the 8 gay warlocks that dictate the rules of fashion?
Yes, they are the 8 gay warlocks that dictate the rules of fashion.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
For example, Prudence, you are aware that the Tasha of Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a former member of the Circle of Eight. She is no longer, but she was at one time. Yes, they got a new member, so they had to pick one to kick out. That's what happened. Totally. Definitely not involved with the war at all. Absolutely. The elf notices, Rurik, you've finished your tea. It does not refill itself. It is not. This is not Thor Ragnarok. But you finish your tea, and he does another wave of his hand, and the teacup disappears from your hand.
Well, thank you for the tea. Much appreciated.
It is quite literally the least that I can do. Prudence says,
Thank you
well,
nonetheless.
You see another small smile crack across his face. You get the feeling that he doesn't have a lot of contact with people, so actual facial expressions are a little rough for him. Prudence says, do you know of any good places to buy magic items nearby? And if possible, I'd like to speak with you for a while. You tell him about the spell scroll? Okay. You rummage through your pack for a moment and take out the scroll of Zephyr Strike. And say, we found this in our travels, and it's not a spell that either of us can use. I would just like to perhaps exchange it for money, and see if we can find a spell that I can use. He holds out his hand, and you pass the scroll to him, I assume. Okay, you pass the scroll, and he opens up the scroll and reads it for a moment, rolls it back up, and looks around the various shelves. He hands the scroll off, and then this, as if to a person, but there's no one standing next to him. The scroll then lifts on its own, and he says, just put it over there, and points at one of the shelves, and the scroll kind of bobs along and is eventually put onto the shelf. And he says to Prudence, if there is a spell in my library that you would like to take and copy, I will be more than willing to allow you to do so. Provided that you have the skill and capabilities to do so. It is not often that I receive spell scrolls for spells that I am not familiar with, so I thank you for your generosity. And Prudence says, no, that's very generous. Thank you. The elf turns to Rurik. Is there anything that you would like, Dr. Dwarf?
Well, you said you've done much research over the years, and though it may not be particularly of interest to you, I can't help but wonder if you encountered any sort of disease in the form of a gradual petrification.
Petrification. He holds out his spellbook to Prudence. 1. Understand? Okay. Prudence nods and says, absolutely. So you go and you start skimming through the book. Rurik, and you say it'd be too expensive for me to copy more than one. Savelis shakes his head and beckons with his hand, and an inkwell and high quality parchment and a quill float over toward you. Now, Dr. Dwarf, you were speaking of a disease of gradual petrification. Petrification. He steps away for a moment and starts skimming through his books. And he pulls one book down. Petrification. Was the people afflicted by this petrification perhaps in contact with a basilisk?
That wasn't something I'd actually planned for, like, to flesh out in terms of the story or anything.
Make a nature check. This is the nice thing about these checks. You can replace your own personal knowledge with rolls, and then I'll tell you if you know it or not.
Ah, fair enough.
The overlay's still working, right? Yes, it is. A 7. You don't know what this creature is. Unfortunately, as named, you haven't noticed in your time treating this disease that any individual has been mentioning a creature. So it seems unlikely, but you're not familiar enough with this creature to really give a definite yes or no. But from the reports, this just kind of happens, even to those that don't stray far from the village. So a creature, in your opinion, would be unlikely.
And I relay information as such to those.
Well, there are certain curses that may cause petrification. None. You say this acts as a disease. It carries from one person to another.
I haven't given much consideration to it being a curse. That would explain why none of my attempts to treat it medically have met with any fruition. I simply use the term disease for a better lack of understanding.
Fair enough. It is difficult to know what we don't know. So,
Yeah, that is
Dr.
why we must
Dwarf,
research.
come back to me tomorrow. I may have something for you. Disease is not my area of specialty, but curses I can do. You can see the gear is starting to turn in his head.
I would be most grateful for any insight you may be able to provide. I don't know what I can do in recompense, but you mentioned scrolls of magic with which you were unfamiliar. You didn't seem particularly interested in anything faith-based, but I do have this, and I will show him my scroll of Shield of Faith. Is this something that might perchance interest you?
Okay. You hand the scroll over to him, and he unrolls it and skims down. He rolls it back up and gives it to you. I am not familiar with the divine, but I am familiar with similar magic. I appreciate the offer, but I will have to decline this one. We'll figure something out. I believe that knowledge for its own sake is the most important type of knowledge.
All knowledge is indeed good knowledge.
Not all, but most, yes. Certain types of knowledge, you can see his face darken a bit. Certain types of knowledge should have been lost. But, his facial expression brightens back up again. But until then, we research. So, is there anything else that I can perhaps teach you today? And I'll stop there, going back to Prudence for a bit. As you skim through the spell book, there are certain spells you know, certain spells you are aware of that you know exist, and there are other spells that even just looking at them, reading them, gives you a headache. You get the feeling that you would not even come close to being able to cast them. With that being said, let me pull up my player's handbook real quick. Wizard, wizard, wizard. Alright. Wizard. So it takes 2 hours and 50 gold pieces. That is...
I like that spell name.
Let me see. Which supplement is that? Spirit Cartographer. Doesn't look like I have that particular one loaded. Book of Lost Spells. Let me take a look at it real quick and let's find out. Once I actually...
I'm gonna use the restroom real quick.
I'm not gonna tell you how to live.
Very curious about this.
Let's see. Homebrew Manager. Oh, this is a Frog God game zone. Okay. Let's see. Spirit Cartographer. Da-da-da-da-da. Satanic corporal creature for the Bible law. Sprites. I will say no, only because I haven't like really thought about this particular one. I'm not familiar with that supplement. And it probably isn't in this book. It might be in another book, but not in this book. This spell book. I will say any spell of spell slots you're able to cast, you can go and copy. Because you're being given assistance from Savelis, A, it's free. You don't have to pay the 50 gold per level. And B, you're able to complete the copying in half time if you allow him to help you. I'll assume for right this moment that we've picked something, and then you can continue to skim and see if there's something that you'd like in the meantime. If it's... Do you have 3rd level spell slots yet? I don't think you do. Okay, so at maximum it'll take you an hour to copy, so I'll just assume that an hour goes by, roughly. It is now night, like deep into the night. And as this process wraps up, Rurik, is there anything that you would like to be doing during this time? Savelis has been working with Prudence to help him copy the spell into his own spellbook.
I would likely pass the time simply looking around his library, like more closely, checking over his books and some of his scrolls and papers lying about.
Okay.
Looking for anything that might be of particular interest.
Okay. Make an investigation check.
That's
7.
another 7.
Another 7. You are going through the books. You see a couple that catch your eye. You are familiar with alchemy and potion brewing. You find a couple of books that are more or less like primers on potion brewing. You do see a number of guides that you're not familiar with, that are related to the brewing of various potions here and there. Given the hour, you're not able to get incredibly far into them, but you glean a little bit of knowledge out of them. What that means is the DC changes for certain things, mechanically.
I
What's up?
That's pretty much it for that
Okay.
for me for now.
Alrighty. So at the conclusion of this hour, or so, Prudence and Sibelius finish up talking to each other and muttering the various arcane words and creating symbols and so on. And as this wraps up, Sibelius turns to the two of you. Well, I believe that I must attend to my duties. Please do not hesitate if you have anything else for me. And if you would ever like to get in touch with me, you can simply use one of these. He hands Rurik, he hands you a small, let me look up the specific description. Give me one quick second. He hands you a small, like marble-sized stone. It looks to be made of granite. Callista. So I'll finish this and then we'll back up to that. Hands Rurik a small, roughly marble size. Looks like a piece of granite. You can see on the side there's a small sigil on the side. Think into this, do your best, and I will hear your message and can respond in kind. Particularly if you find more of those scrolls. I will be ready for you.
I accept the item. Thank
Okay.
you very much. Your counsel has been most appreciated.
Of course, Dr. Dwarf. You can add a sending stone to your inventory. One sending stone, the other end held by Sibelius. So Prudence, as you've been discussing, Callista, let me hang on one second. Just want to make sure I don't contradict anything we talked about before. No. Okay. You mentioned that you learned many of your magical talents under a wizard by the name of Callista, and ask if he's heard the name. And he thinks for a moment. Callista. I can't say that I have, although Callista. I may have heard of him. Then I have not. Oh, well. Forgive an old man his vices. I do not think that I have anything more for either of you today. Dr. Dwarf, as I said, come to me tomorrow and I may have something more for you. Prudence, it was an honor to meet another in this backwater town that actually understands what it is to cast a spell. Okay. Prudence, Prudence, you don't wear glasses, I believe, correct? Maybe you do, and I've just forgotten.
I think the joke is he adjusts his glasses, but he doesn't have any.
That's right. He has glasses, but he
right.
doesn't
Right,
actually
the
need them.
fake glass.
So, Prudence, you mutter thanks repeatedly and go to adjust your glasses. As you are being more or less ushered out, and another 30 seconds passes as he goes and unlocks each of the various locking mechanisms on the door, and you can see him struggle to pull the door open, and it takes his moment, and then he pulls it a little further open, and then the door is about wide enough for particularly Rurik to fit through, and he looks up to both of you and doesn't say anything.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
And you as well, Dr. Dwarf. Okay, so you make your way out of the tower. You can hear it slam behind you, and the various locking mechanisms lock back into place. Prudence, it is distinctly nighttime. You can see one of the moons is high in the sky, the other is sort of a little bit transverse, crossing over it. And
Wait, there were 2 moons this whole time?
oh yeah, Earth has 2 moons.
Oh, well then. That's neat.
Okay.
Haven't you known?
You begin to leave, and Prudence kind of stops and turns toward the water and says, "I'd like to find out if it's salt water or not."
Well, Zook knew, but I didn't.
Right.
Well,
so
a really easy way to find out is to just taste it.
Prudence says, "Yes, let's do that." And without waiting for any kind of confirmation, he starts making his way down toward the lake area. Of note, the lighthouse is more or less on the edge of the water, but it's kind of like up on a cliff. So the rear side of the tower goes just down into the water, and then you have to go around a relatively, not long, but a good distance path just to get down toward where the water is, down toward the docks themselves. The lighthouse itself is a fair distance from any accessible point on the water.
I mean, it's a lighthouse.
Well,
Yes.
actually, is there any particular reason why you want to find out whether it's salt water or fresh water?
Yes,
Um,
I'm curious.
What I could do is I could take a sample of the water, and as we rest for the night, I can spend some time desalinizing it and attempting to see if it boils away and is reduced to salt.
I think that's distilling it.
No, I'm referring to desalinization.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it
You're the expert.
boiling away liquids to leave the substrates in the container. That's the first step of distillation. But yes, you're describing desalinization specifically as a side process of distillation. And he says, Prudence says, "It seems like so much trouble. I could find out by tasting it."
Whichever method you want to do, that's perfectly fine with me. You seem perturbed by the precariousness
oh.
of life.
Sorry, no, I heard a siren outside, and I was like, when did this music have sirens in it? Anyway. Going on.
Depends on what kind of siren.
Heyo. Anyway.
Stop! You have violated the law.
I'm calling the police.
No fair.
So what was it that you said? I'm sorry, I kind of talked over you there.
Oh, I was just mentioning that I put forth that solution because they see because Prudence seemed bothered by the precariousness of the lighthouse and how difficult it might be to get to the water.
Alrighty, so this, I don't want to push things along too much, but this scene will have to come to a close relatively soon, because we're in hour number 3 of 3, so.
I would prefer it not to go on as long as the last one did. That was a bit excessive. It was great, but it was a little long.
Oh, just you guys wait until you actually start fighting big bads. Oh boy.
I actually look forward to that.
So this combat takes 6 weeks.
I've legitimately had multi-session combats.
Yeah, like at our pace, that's not like that's like I won't say that's not unheard of because we haven't done that before.
I would say the goblin thing was a multi-session encounter.
The goblin thing was a
session.
The goblin was
Fortress?
a 2. Yeah, Dibs Fortress was a multi-part encounter. You got through the first part, and then we broke, and then we went to the second part. I'm talking like the same enemy over the course of 8 combined hours. And so anyway, going back, Prudence says, here, I have a plan. He holds out his hand, and I'd like a vial, please.
Ah, I see. Okay. I pull out a small vial and pull out the stopper and hand it to Prudence.
Alrighty, so Prudence takes it, holds it up to Deer, who kind of like awkwardly takes it in one of her claws. It slips, but then holds firm. And you say, please fill part of this with water. And she takes off toward the water. A moment passes, and she comes back with a slightly soaked. She didn't have the best of times in the water, but it's too dark for you to tell that at a distance. And she lands on Prudence's shoulder on one foot, shaking off her feathers and getting a bit of water on Prudence. But the vial is in her claw. She's doing her best to... Yep, so you take it from her, she settles back down on your shoulder and starts preening. You go and taste it. It is not salt water, it is fresh water, and it is not particularly clean either. You can taste some greenery in the water. And he just sort of smacks his lips a little, pours out. Do you pour out the rest of the water? Yeah, pours out the rest of the water and hands the bottle back to you, and says, "Let's go." With a sort of disappointed look on his face.
That didn't sound particularly appetizing.
Well, my curiosity is quenched, if not my thirst.
And I'll make my way back with him.
Okay, so you guys make your way back toward the Oarsman's Respite. It's been about 2 hours at this point. So Hoyd, Shigun, and Zook, you've been drinking, unless you've been doing anything else during this time period.
I've been shopping.
That's right, you were leaving to go shopping. Rewind an hour. Does anyone leave with Zook?
Time travel in D&D.
Yeah, no kidding.
Nope, I stay put.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was probably going to say the tavern.
Enjoying the fruits of my labor.
Okay. Prudence, at this point, you'd still be in the tower. You'd still be at the lighthouse, unfortunately, at this point.
Oh,
Can you, though? You can't.
What if he casts mirror image?
He's master
Mir-
of time and space.
Mirror image creates duplicates that exist on your space. So you kind of look like... You know when if you have multiple character models of the same character in a game and they're all clipping through each other? That's what mirror image looks like.
okay, that's a really
They're
great
not-
visual for that, actually.
Yeah, they're not exactly like if you are a trickery domain cleric, you can invoke duplicity, and that'll create a second illusory version of you elsewhere that you can cast spells through. Not quite like
Oh,
that.
that's cool.
Yeah, trickery domain is pretty bananas.
Man, that sounds amazing.
It's you don't get access to you don't have like healing spells and stuff as domain spells though, so it's a give and take. So Zook, you wander out of the tavern. What kind of things are you looking for to go shopping?
I'm specifically looking for a Fletcher because I want to get some special arrows if I can.
Okay. Yeah, you make your way toward vaguely. You know like where the commercial district is per se. This is more of a this isn't really a place where you can go to get stuff, but every town has places where you can get stuff. So they don't have a large commercial district, but there are a couple of Fletchers and blacksmiths here and there. You're able to find one relatively easily.
Okay. What kind of arrows do they have?
So you enter the establishment and you
What are
ask
their wares?
about special arrows, and the Fletcher, you can see he's actually lining up a feather along the back of one of the arrows to put on as fletching, and he starts wrapping it with a bit of catgut to hold it in place. He says, well, for special arrows, we got one that'll light on fire. We got one that'll pack a bit more of a punch than others. We have a few others that have been enchanted, if that's more what you're going for. Not many around these parts ask for arrows. A bow is a little harder to use than a crossbow, so most are looking for bolts. You got anything in particular in mind?
Like, he said one. Does that mean, like, literally one arrow that's a fire arrow?
No. It as a collection of those arrows, one type that he has available. You don't know how many he has, but it's not likely to just be one.
Well, I was interested in I'm just curious in like any different special arrows that the guy has, like what kinds are there? How expensive?
It depends on the type of arrow. If it's been enchanted, it's going to run a lot more than an arrow that is chemical or mechanical in nature. You inquire about the flaming arrows, and he holds one up. It's a little heavier in front. There's a bit of twine that's been dipped in wax on the front of it, and you can see there's a bit of wax running along the shaft as well. And he says, yeah, I want to light one of these up, cover it in pitch or tar, probably be a little bit more effective, but it'll work just fine without. And light one of these up, you can hopefully try and cast fire on your opponent. This one here is going to run you, let's see, This one here is going to run you about a silver piece. I've got a bundle of 4 of these ones.
It's like, wait, what's the price? How does that work out? Is that like 4 for one, or what? Wait, no, 1 silver piece for
1 for 1 arrow. A standard arrow is 5 copper pieces.
Okay, so it's like, and like, does he only have like 4 in total?
He said he has a bundle of 4. Yes. Having specialty arrows is not incredibly common unless you have like a specific person who is a tinkerer or there's a workshop, and those tend not to be in smaller settlements. But this particular Fletcher appears to at least work a little bit outside the norm.
I have heard tell of arrows with a rope attached, and it sort of makes a zip line. I assume he doesn't have any of those?
You describe what it is that you're looking for. He says,
I'm curious.
oh, you're thinking of a climbing arrow, or a kind of snaps his finger. I've also forgotten the name, but I know what you're describing. I don't have one immediately on hand, but I could probably make one for you. If you supply your rope, and I'll fashion a good little harness for it. It'll probably be for the materials, a special order, and for the time, somewhere in the range of a silver to 2 silver for one of these arrows. But you'll be able to cast a rope wherever you want to shoot it.
How much time would this take?
Oh, I could have this done within the hour.
Okay. I will pay him a silver, and is he like gonna make one if that's 1 silver?
So it depends on what tip you're looking for. There are 2 options. There's one that's just a standard arrow tip that would be, for example, embedded into an object at your target, or there is a grappling hook variant that has a miniaturized, like you know those lure fish hooks with the 3 prongs. It's a little bigger than that, but it's more or less a miniature grappling hook that would probably not be able to carry anything heavier than you, but you'd at least be able to cast it up there. But if anyone heavier than you tried to pull on it, probably wouldn't stay. That would be the 2 silver variant.
Zip line your way to victory.
So I think I want to have 1 climbing arrow with the hook tip made for 2 silver.
Okay.
What other non-magical arrows are on offer besides the fire ones?
Okay. There was the climbing arrows.
Which I think I also want to pick up.
Yeah. There are the fire arrows, there's the climbing arrows. Of the non-magical options he has, the only one he has is one that is slightly heavier, and it has a special metal tip that when you lift it, it appears that the tip is hollow. And he says you can place an acid or a poison into this, and it'll have a much better chance of poisoning or hurting your target. You're familiar with coating your arrows in an acid. With this, it's the DC to resist the poison is much higher.
Oh, okay.
He only has one of those because they are relatively difficult to craft, and that one is 2 silver. But mechanically, the DC to resist poison or acid that's put into it before releasing is much higher than standard acid or poison.
Is that like a one-use only kind of arrow, or can you reuse it?
He looks at the tip. It's... Well, I've done my best to reinforce it. You can feel it's a bit heavier, but I'm not really sure, to be honest. I've sold these, but people don't often come back to tell me how they did.
I think I'll take one.
Okay. So that's 2 for the climbing, 2 for the... you can call it a...
I wrote it down as chemical arrow.
Chemical arrow, that's a good description. I was going to say injection, but that's not really the right word. But chemical arrow is a good way to put it.
This would be a fun thing for me to work in tandem with Zook on if I were to actually make a poison of some kind.
So.
And then how many of the fire arrows would you like to buy?
The pack of 4.
Okay, so that's 4 silver for those as well.
8 silver total.
Mm-hmm. And then do you want to pick up any regular arrows? I don't know if you need any regular arrows at this point.
I have plenty. It's fine.
Okay. So he takes your silver, spends the next hour crafting the climbing arrow, and he finishes that up and hands it to you. Is there anything else that you want to look for while you're out?
Not really. I will stick around while the climbing arrow is being crafted.
Okay. So while that's going on, you kind of peruse through the store. This person, unlike the blacksmith that you visited when you were in Nineveh, this person is very well versed in their craft. They're very, very... the quality of the project is much higher. And you can tell that this person puts a lot of effort into each individual piece that they create. There's a number of... You can see there are a number of the... there are a number of plain arrows, just rounded barrels, but there's also a number of crossbows, a number of bows. A few of the bows are higher up and they have a small chain, like a small golden chain, holding them in place to avoid being stolen. And as you approach them, the Fletcher calls over and says, yeah, we work with sometimes we have a few wizards coming through, and I like to catch them when they can, because you know, you never know when you might want a bow that, I don't know, shoots 2 arrows at once or something. So just let me know if there's anything in particular that catches your eye. There's, just for the sake of brevity, there are 2 magic bows that are there. They're both probably relatively expensive, but let me pull up what they are here. There is a... there is a red feather bow, which is a... You can see there's a small bird feather that's been woven into the string at one end, and it's a +1 bonus to attack and damage. And it has 3 charges. When you fire an arrow, you can speak the command word and use a charge to see through the arrow. You can see from the point the arrow lands as if you were there for 1 minute. If it strikes a creature, you can see what they see for the same duration. That in particular is about, I want to say 1,200 gold. Let me actually get out that book because it doesn't. I didn't write down the prices because I was an idiot. Page 214.
That sounds amazing.
Oh, it's a mighty fine weapon, but it's also hella expensive. It's all the way in the back of the book. Come on. Yeah, so that one runs about 2,000 gold. And then the other arrow, the other bow that's there is it's a plain generic variant +1 that runs 660 gold. So it's a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. Magic items are expensive, yo. I believe you are muted if you're saying anything.
Oh, right, yeah, no, sorry.
Yep.
I keep forgetting. I cannot afford either bow.
Okay.
So, I will wait at the Fletcher's while he's crafting the climbing arrow.
Okay.
I give him
So
my
he-
rope to do
like,
that.
you're familiar?
What's up?
I have 50 feet of rope. How much rope does this use?
It uses however much rope you'd like to use. The arrow, because it's heavier than others, you can only go out to the first range of your bow. You can't shoot any further. So normally you could shoot past that first range with disadvantage. With this arrow, it won't even travel that far.
Okay, I'm gonna check what that
Which-
even is.
You have a short bow,
I do, yes.
so that would be 80 feet. You can only go to 80 feet. You can't even attempt to go further at disadvantage. With the chemical arrow, that distance shortens to 40, but you can attempt to go out to 80 with disadvantage. But this is because the arrows are significantly heavier than regular. Which is why a lot of people prefer magic arrows over mundane arrows, because the magic arrows don't suffer from these problems.
I'm idly curious how expensive the magic arrows are.
Let's see.
Maybe be able to like window shop.
Yeah. So he has a few arrows. He has an arrow of lightning, a piercing arrow, and a bursting arrow. Bursting arrow, exploding, and they each run 50 gold apiece. The lightning arrow is 100 gold.
Well, none of them are really my style anyway. I think I'm satisfied with my setup. I'm still trying to figure out how many feet of rope I want to put towards this one arrow.
So you don't have to attach it immediately. It has a small what's the word I'm looking for? It has a small loop on the back that you can thread a rope through to tie.
Oh.
It to prepare the arrow is an action, but you can then fire at or shoot at any time at a later turn.
Oh, okay. So I can just. It's not like, oh, I have to cut off part of the rope and then like solder it to the arrow.
Right. It's not
So-
permanently attached to the arrow. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Then I can decide later.
Yeah. If you ever look up sometime, look up bow fishing. It's a lot like that, except they use fishing line attached to the back of the arrow. It's you buy the arrows that are designed to have a fishing line attached to them, and then you attach to your own fishing line that you already have. It doesn't just come attached to it. It's a lot like that, except the rope is bigger, so you don't shoot as well. So
Nice.
he finishes up putting together the grappling arrow, more or less, and he hands it over to you. You've paid the 8 silver rather.
In total for all 6 arrows.
In total for all 6. And then, as he hands it to you, he kind of looks out the window and notices that the sun has set. It's now nighttime. And he says, "Well, I'd appreciate your business, and if you need anything else, you can come back in the morning. I need to go to sleep."
As do I.
Alright, so you make your way
I
out
will
of the
leave the
Fletcher.
shop and go back to the I forget its name, place by the dock.
The Oarsman's Respite.
Yes.
Okay. As you make your way back, just off on one side of the path, there aren't a whole lot of people left outside. Most have either gone home or gone to the taverns or whatever. On one side of the road, you see a child is not the right word, like an adolescent, right? Like a young teenager almost.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Standing at the side of the road, and you can see that he is shuffling a pair of cards in his hand. As you approach, as you approach to go by, he doesn't make any motion or acknowledgement that you're there, and he just calls out to you, "A silver for your fortune? Silver for your fortune?" He just continues shuffling these cards in his hand.
I don't respond.
Okay. You continue on, and eventually the sound of the cards fade, and you return to the Oarsman's Respite. You actually run into Prudence as he's returning. The timelines roughly line up. I'll say they roughly line up for the ease of my own benefit.
I mean, we both left and went somewhere and then waited an hour.
Yeah. So, you,
Hoyd's weird brothel place.
Hoyd's weird brothel place that has no prostitutes.
Did I not secure quiet rooms for you?
So you...
Are they quiet because they're soundproofed?
Prudence, don't worry about it.
Fancy motel.
Don't worry about it.
I do this thing for you.
So you run into Prudence as he's entering the Oarsman's Respite, and you, Rurik, and Prudence enter the tavern, where I believe this would have been where I believe Hoyd and Shigun have been spending time. Have you been doing anything in particular besides eating or besides drinking, really?
Not really, just enjoying the night.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have 2 people charmed, don't I?
You do. Oh, are you gonna need those hourly rooms now?
No. I just not at all.
I'm just waiting for Prudence to type here. Okay. So Prudence doesn't say much as he goes in. He finds Shigun and Hoyd, and he thanks Hoyd for finding this place. Of note, there are 3 rooms currently booked, so 2 of you will have to share a room if you'd like. Then, so how would you like to divvy up the rooms, or if you'd like to get another room?
I'm accustomed to traveling with Shigun.
Okay. So Shigun and Rurik will bunk down together, as it were.
Does not matter.
Okay, so either way, you shuffle up however you want, make your way up to the room. Whoever is with Prudence, if he's not alone, you are going to have to deal with him reading his book for a bit. So Prudence is with Hoyd. You're going to have to deal with Hoyd. You're going to have to deal with
coming down.
Prudence.
I'm with Prudence tonight.
I guess so.
Good, great. Prudence, you don't mind me playing my lute, do you?
He casts silence. No.
Yeah, he could.
Actually, I don't. He says, "I mind noises less than odors, and I don't mind odors."
I imagine he doesn't mind doors either.
You never know. He has not made any indication one way or the other. But
He
yes,
doesn't strike me as the type. Actually, no, maybe, I don't know.
Everyone, enjoy your night.
Well, thank you very much.
Alrighty.
Do you need any compensation for the room?
Of course not.
Thank you kindly.
You are the source of this evening, aren't you?
I'm the what?
Oh, right. You weren't here. Talk to Shigun.
Ah, that was See, now I'm not sure who you're talking to.
Talking to Rurik. All right, you weren't here. Talk to Shigun about tonight.
Okay, I thought you said Dr. Shigun, and I'm like, this is crossing some wires.
Doctor? No.
I could have swore I heard you say Dr. Shigun.
Dr. Shigun.
Nope. Talk to Shigun
Alrighty.
about tonight.
So,
That's what you said.
Prudence attempts.
You should
Prudence
know very well.
Prudence attempts to hand Hoyd 5 silver for his share of the room. Hoyd, do you take it?
I juggle it.
Okay. So you take the 5 silver and you juggle it.
Not quite so well as our little friend, but still do it.
Yes. You are less proficient in the visual arts than you are the audible arts. So you each go here. So you each return to your rooms. The 3 rooms are not next to each other. There's a small like clip or a hook on the outside of the door. You hang your little tag on. The number matches the number on the door. And when you get into the room, you can see that the room has a deadbolt that locks from the inside. So, assuming you probably lock it on the inside. Hoyd, you pluck away your loot into the evening. As Prudence, you study the spell that you have just copied into your spell book. Is there anything anybody would like to do before going to sleep?
I actually had a quick thing.
Yes.
Would the rooms have any sort of like wash or cleansing basin of some kind?
There isn't one in the room, but there is a shared washroom on the first floor, just sort of in the one of the side rooms.
I would like to.
It is available. It is included in the cost of the room.
I would either like to use that or approach the barkeep. Either of which these would work, but I'd like to clean the vial that had the sea water or the water in it.
Okay. Yeah. You approach the bar. And ask one of the barkeeps if they could wash out a vial for you, and they take it, look at it just to make sure there's no like residual potion magic crap inside of it, and shrug and quickly wash it out for you and hand it back.
Thank you. I toss them the silver piece for the troubles.
They catch the silver piece and look at it and look at you with a quirked eyebrow, but don't say anything. Okay. So Zook, you pull out the small music box and you let it play as you are sort of reminiscing on the events of the past day. And it takes a moment for you to really settle everything and to bring yourself to center to a position where you need to sleep, but you do eventually find yourself drifting off to sleep. So Hoyd, as Prudence is studying in the room next to you, Hoyd, you're going over various stories and performances, and you have a few written down, but others you have just in your head, and you go back and you revise a few of those. Going down the list, Shigun, is there anything that you would like to do before going to sleep?
Probably not too much. I think I'm good to sleep after that encounter with those dragons and that weird demon tree.
Demon.
Love the conflict
Alrighty.
warm energy
You're
happening
not
here.
wrong.
Alrighty. So Rurik and Shigun, you each find yourself to sleep. You're the first to get to sleep out of the group. Settling down, feeling the weight of your armor off of you to the side. Eventually find yourself going to sleep. Zook, you eventually do find yourself calming and going to sleep in time. And Prudence and Hoyd actually, as Prudence is just finishing up all the studying he would like to do, Hoyd, you're just wrapping up, revising one of your new stories that you would like to tell, and you too find yourself going to bed as well. And on that note, I would like everybody to roll a constitution. No, I'm kidding. On that note, I will close the session for this evening. Because for once you guys are ending on a long rest. Yay! Prudence, I know you're gonna ask if you can roll your
combat.
I know you're gonna ask to roll your portents, so you can roll your portents now if you'd like, or you can roll them next session when you wake up.
I think it's like maybe the second session ever that we've actually ended on a long rest.
Alrighty. So Prudence, remind me to roll for your portents. Or you roll now, it's up to you.
It's the third or fourth.
Oh. You're gonna do isn't the...
Alrighty, so you rolled a 10 and a 7. So write those down somewhere. Not great rolls. Very middling rolls, unfortunately. Alrighty. So, as always, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to you guys for playing. Our next... I gotta get up to the right page here. Our next Thursday game is going to be on the 19th, March 19th. And if you'd like to watch the Monday group, which is their campaigns taking place in the same setting, in the same universe, they're going to be playing next Monday on the 9th. So, as I said before, thank you everybody for playing, and thank you everybody for watching, and have a good night.